So again, welcome everybody for attending this session for the month of September for our Mentoring Matters talk. This is our program. We would like to give a brief overview of the Mentoring Club for those people who do not know about the Mentoring Club yet. And then we'd like to take advantage of the hour and 20 minutes to do the talk along with interactive Q&A, community type of activity with Sanjeev. And as you know, the topic is about using user experience or UX concepts to achieve your personal goals. And then we'll spend about 5 minutes for announcements, and we'll go into some virtual networking so that we get to know each other better. And we will end at about 8:30 with some 10 minutes of just exchanging things that we've learned from each other from the virtual networking. And just so you know, you can follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We have daily posts there, and we do expect Ping Manongdo, our social media marketing consultant, who's also a mentee, to join us tonight. So I want to bring this up front. I want to thank everybody who has made each of these sessions possible. Our partners for spreading the words, particularly the team that's here right now, who's helping with audio, video, and session coordination, as well as the back-end people who's helping with marketing and the platform. So again, for those of you who are not yet aware of who the Mentoring Club is, we are a nonprofit organization, and our focus is really to provide a mentoring community for aspiring and seasoned leaders. And we want to help working people to develop the skills that they need in order to achieve their goals. And you know, personally, my dream is that as the mentees develops themselves and they become leaders, that they become mentors to others eventually. So those are some of our mentees that are currently in the community. And as far as development areas of mentees that we've seen, these are the top 20 areas that our mentee community has expressed. So a lot around cross-functional disciplines versus vertical disciplines. And industry coverage, we're in Silicon Valley, so number one is information technology. And it's a whole range of domain expertise or industries that we're covering as well. So this is where the mentors and the mentees have stated that they have engaged in these different industries. As far as geographic distribution is concerned, so in the US, so we're heavily composed of people in California, but to have some presence in other states as well, both on the mentor and the mentee side. Globally, we also have, obviously in the US, heavily focused in the US, but we do have mentors and mentees in other parts of the world. And so I will now turn over the floor to Sanjeev. So he's one of our mentors, and I will let him introduce himself. So what I really want to just share with you is how I met him. So this is another one of those hikes. So I met Sanjeev at an entrepreneur, one of the meetups for entrepreneurship, where we do the hikes at the Dish every third Sunday of the month. And that was how I met him. So we talked about what he was doing, what I was doing, and then he was interested, and I was honored to have him join us pretty quickly after that as one of our mentors. So Sanjeev.
So thank you, Liesel, once again. So a little bit about myself. I've got about 20 odd years of experience as an entrepreneur. Have worked across offline events, online events, media, technology, and now I'm co-founder of a company that is into the enterprise AI space. But on the side, I take a keen interest in everything that our audiences look at, what users deal with in their daily lives, how they engage with products and services is of extreme interest to me, and the user experience of it, and how we can keep on making it more interesting, intuitive for our audience across technology, as well as in real life in general, in whatever we create is what I focus on. I consult some small enterprises, startup entrepreneurs, as well as some large Fortune 500 companies along the journey. And I thought that once I met Liesel, I was already into the area of working as a mentor with Techstars, with the GSV Labs in Silicon Valley here, and now with, of course, Mentoring Club. And it's been a great experience so far, and I'm looking forward to helping whatever way I can. So starting with user experience, I know it's a topic that is misconstrued a lot. It's not clearly understood because it's some people think it's about making things look good. Some people think it's about knowing people more, but it's much more than that. So what is user experience is what is a question. But before I get into that, today's session, I wanted to be a bit more about, so user experience basically is about having a lot of conversations. So we need to start with an icebreaker wherein we speak about what we've been doing in the last 6 months. It's been an unprecedented time. A lot of changes have happened in our whole experience in day-to-day life, right? And what have we learned? So let me start by myself, right? So one new skill I picked up in the last 6 months is that of cutting my own hair. That's something I've learned, and I've tried it out. Initially, I tried it on myself, checked out being a UX guy. I obviously spoke to my kids, showed them a haircut, and got some feedback. And then over a period of time, have improved. I've done about 3 or 4 of them, and I think I'm pretty good now, up to the latest one too. So I think this is a time for us to take a moment, and maybe each one could talk about what is a unique thing that they have learned in the last 6 months during this sudden change in everyday life with COVID. All right, I think we're done with everybody.
Yes.
Okay, so what is the common thread in this whole thing? During the time of that sudden changes happen in life, all of us have adapted in some way or the other. That is human nature, right? So we have learned new stuff. We have adjusted our regular routines to suit something else, or we have taken the opportunity that the time we have suddenly got on hand to learn something new and evolve, which is human nature. And that's what feeds into the core concepts of user experience. So it's about the experiences that we have across the journeys that we take on, right? And how the scenarios around us change, and how we react to it, how we engage with those things, and at the bottom of it all, the emotions that drive us through the journey and post that is what really makes us who we are, right? So if you take any, I don't know if you've heard of this, but any buying decision when it comes to a product on an e-commerce store, for example, is not based on cost, but it's based on the emotion. The underlying emotion, the moment you see the product, you have an instinct. There is something that kicks in the back end, in the back of your mind, that already drives you towards that whole feeling that I want it. Okay. So that same thing feeds into something like this. This is Bill Watterson is my all-time favorite cartoonist, and Calvin and Hobbes has defined a lot of my whole connections with everyday things that we do in life, and how we associate it, how we relate to it, and how we can build our whole journey. So if you look at this itself, breakfast to all of us is something, when we grow up, it's something we need to get through, right? It's not something that we think about too much. Okay, what's there? We got to make something, put it in, and we are off to work, off to our call, let's say nowadays, right? But think about it from a kid's perspective, and look at what this whole cartoon strip says, right? The kid does not, the whole experience about stirring the milk and it changes color, and that is what really makes him, oh, this is cool. So there is that emotion associated with it, which really makes that whole experience worth engaging in. And that is what we need to think of when we are looking at what is it we are doing today, and how does our action, or how does what we contribute build an experience for others involved, which in turn is going to drive us ahead. So now we need to take it into an immediate exercise. What I want you to do, each one of you to do, is think about an immediate goal that you have now. An immediate one could be a very simple thing, could be as simple as I need to clean up the garage. Okay, I'm saying think that simple if you want to. It can go the whole range. You may just say I need to build my resume, or I need to do something else, or I need to get something. Could be any goal that you have. Think about what it means to you, or what it needs to do for you. That is one. Second is, who can help you work on this? Who can help you get to that goal, right? And third is, what do you envision the outcome of that activity towards the goal? How do you see it all come together? So let's take 5 minutes for this to pen it down. But I want you to make those 3 notes. Keep it to yourself. You do not need to share it right now. So the 3 things that everybody needs to do when it comes to managing goals is, one is, in user experience terms, one we call it as stakeholder engagement, which is typically we talk to the owner of the process or owner of the product and understand what their needs are. So in this case, you as a user are looking at what your own needs are when it comes to your goals, right? The second thing we're talking about, collaborative working, wherein we look at which is a team to work with to reach a certain goal, and how do you align with the right person. So in your case, it's going to be whatever you do, you need people to collaborate with you, right? So even if it is creating the perfect picture to put on Instagram or on TikTok or whatever it is, you have a team member who's going to make it memorable for you, who's going to do those poses, who's going to do all the prep work for you. So that's the second step of it. And the third is, obviously, that's what leads to you creating the right experience, so people see you in the right light, right? So that the experience for your audience is the best one when it comes to you. So look at what you've written down. This is not something wherein we are going to dig down deeper into what exactly was your goal, but it's just that the 3 things that you have noted down should map to the 3 user experience steps that I've just spoken about. So you would have your own need, you would have a right member of the or partner or collaborator that you've identified, and the third thing that you've done is, how do you think that thing, the end result would be, is what showcases about what your goal is going to come out as. When we move ahead on this whole process of creating or moving towards a goal, we have something in user experience that we call as empathy maps. Empathy maps is what basically gives you a pulse of what your audience, is how your audience engages with you. So it talks about how is the audience thinking about things, what does the audience say, what does he do, or he or she do, or how does he or she feel when he engages with the experience that you create. So the same thing comes in for whatever you are doing. So even if it is that, so you say, let's say an example is you are creating a resume because you need to apply for your goal is to land a new job, and you created a new resume. You need to think about how does the whole experience land up when you send out a resume, right? So you need those triggers to then improve on what you're doing, right? So when it comes to, these are what we call ingredients. So in UX methodology, you typically have a process which is this. When if you look at the screen, you start the process with the empathize scenario, wherein you're looking at what is the problem, you're defining the challenge, and you're exploring the human context for that whole challenge, right? What is the problem that the audience faces? So in the case of self, it's going to be whoever you are going to interface with, what do you think is their view of the world? So anyway, I'll go to that step in the next slide. But yeah, the first is the problem. The second is, why is it so important? You need to then, and that's where we do a lot of research, understand the challenges, understand where it lies in the priority side of it, right? And we ideate towards it. Then we create the ideas that can be, so we create the plans in terms of what are the right things that may work best, right? And then we prototype those ideas. So we create the concepts, we build the prototypes, and then we need to test it and get some kind of feedback from a sample set of users, and then and this whole process keeps going on and on to improve on the concepts, right? So when you apply it for self, you have to first look at now the same steps, but now it applies to yourself, right? So you introspect. You need to understand your current state of mind. What is it that you need? What is it that you're looking at in today's world when it comes to, okay, I want to do this. So, okay, that's, you need to get an understanding of that first, right? You need to define and prioritize what you list out the key needs. Now, you did one small step of listing out your immediate goal. Similarly, you may have multiple goals. So you list out those needs. So again, it's not the wants, it's the core needs, right? You need to then ideate is you need to put up an action plan basis your prioritization of which is the most important need that you have today. Put up an action plan and then look at preparing for it. So once you list out an action plan, preparation could be, doing that course on C++, or reading up a certain book, or building up, creating your resume, or going for a run if your goal is of a fitness type, or whatever it is, right? And then you need to test that. So testing is basically you need to engage with your immediate network or people who can give you candid feedback. See, the user experience process is all about talking to people, getting feedback, and then thinking about it, analyzing it, and then reapplying the same concepts of the process to further improve on the whole approach that you have, right? So this is a typical thing, a typical process that one needs to follow to really drive towards specific goals. And of course, it's never, the process alone is not what does it. You need to obviously always question the status quo because things may not always seem to move in the direction you want it to. So if you're not feeling that it's moving ahead, you need to, again, look into what's going wrong or think about what is it. Are you getting the right enough feedback? Maybe you need to talk to someone more, and that whole process has to. So this is a key part of, it's not just defining the process and running it and it'll all work out. No, you need to continuously think about each step of the way and question the status quo. So how do we do that typically? We have a concept called 5WH when it comes to user experience. Basically, it's the who, why, what, where, when, and how. So, and you apply it to your user. Who is the user? So who are you? Who do you want to really reach out to, right? Why is this the right user? And where is this user? So this could depend on what is the goal you've defined for yourself, or what is, and what is the scenario that you're in. And you may have multiple user types that come up there. And what does the user need? This is a tricky one because this is where you need to really, so when it comes to the enterprise world or building a product world, we actually go out and do interviews with the user, create a list of things, and we analyze it as a team and then figure out, okay, fine, now this is what they really, these are the key pain points and this is what their need is. So when it comes to self, how do you apply that thought process? So if you're applying for a job and you need to get a particular role, you need to then understand who you're talking to. You need to figure out, does that company have a specific need? If not, you're looking at what is the kind of work they do and what kind of talent are they probably most possibly hiring for, and whether you can fit in and add value in that role. Just as an example of a role thing, if it is something that you're doing from a personal a personal activity, then again you're thinking about, so let's in that case it could be you as a self. If you want to lose say 5 pounds or 10 pounds and you need to get it, so your need is to lose that weight. So how do you get there, and what do you need to do for us? That becomes a way of looking at the end user, because in that case that becomes a unique case where you yourself become the end user. But then your audience could be somebody at home who's initially said that, you know what, you need to lose weight because I'm worried for your health. So it works that way too. So you need to focus on your audience at all times, so that you really can move in a systematic manner towards achieving whatever you're setting out to do. And how do you address this need? Obviously, is the how of it is, and this again feeds in back to the previous process loop that we showed. These are the underlying concepts that need to be kept in mind. And of course, process is everything. When it comes to any large enterprise or any large or successful business or individual that you see, there always is a process to what they do. It may seem very simple when you look at it. They may achieve great success in whatever they do, even a simple talk. There is a fair amount of process that goes into it. So there is a method to the madness, is what we're getting to. So, for example, the like button, we all, when it comes to Facebook, we've used that ever since Facebook has been out there. And when they went into a change from the button that you see on the left to the one that you see on the right, they took close to about 6 months to get this one change done, because it is a huge difference. It was a huge move from a thumbs up to just the F and a like. And that itself had to go through a lot of reviews. They need to really get a lot of feedback from their sample users, understand what they thought about it, look at the emotional attachments they had to this whole experience, and then make the change, right? And then, of course, it applied to multiple areas. How do you show numbers? What are the various interaction points on a screen and things like that? So it was thought through in that way. Moving on to the next level, when they did the next edit of the emoticons, they took another 6 to 8 months, and it was not well received, even after all that, because the end user wanted things like sarcasm to be noted for. How do you have an emoticon for sarcasm? But when it came back to Facebook's team, they looked at it from a priority perspective and said that, okay, you have 10% of people who want sarcasm probably, but it's something that we can't fit into this scope of thing right now. But this is the best set that they could launch with, and they did that, and it did well later on. It caught on. People got used to the experience. They adapted to this new experience, and they built from there. The whole process is not just it's not a two-step process. It has to evolve with feedback from users. You're going to make iterations. You're going to make changes. You have to weave your way to get to a certain adoption level. And the same thing goes for anything that you do for self. When it comes to emotions, right? We all hear about user experience is all about empathy, is what everybody says. And this is something that I sure all of us can relate to this in life in general. There are things we think we can do very well. We get on with it, and then the whole world seems to conspire against us. But the funda here is that you need to focus on how do you think about how can you move towards building a positive thought process instead of a negative thought process that you typically have, saying that everybody's working against it, this thing is not working, the guy doesn't understand what I'm saying. Instead of that, if we are able to look at the empathize with the audience's ecosystem, you will discover paths wherein you can add value. So if you see a block, you can see a block when you understand the other person's perspective. And that's when you can actually adapt your overall messaging, maybe overall statements that you say, or maybe even your presentation or whatever it is that you're doing, right? To kind of take a smaller step, but in the right direction. So that's something that we need to do, which is what we call increase motivation to reduce friction in user experience. And the same thing applies to ourselves too. And the underlying message I'd like to say here is that anything that has to get this increasing of motivation and reduction of friction to happen can only be done through communication, and which is what is again at the core of user experience. I know there are people in this session who still think that user experience is more about the visual side of it, but it really is about the communication side of it, understanding the person on the other side of it, and then adapting your communications to it. A dot voting activity that is used in user experience to primarily list out various thought processes that people have, and then prioritize them and see which has got the most value for the problem that we look to solve. So because we are all part of the mentoring club and we come from various walks of life, I'd like to try and see if we can do something that is positive for the mentoring club. So if everybody can think about two things that one expects from the mentoring club in this activity, let's say, right? What is it that you expect from the mentoring club? Just list two things out in the chat itself. I'll just copy paste it and put it into a voting Miro board, and then we can just have an activity around that. So just a quick thing in terms of 2 or 3 minutes. Two things that you need that you expect from the mentoring club. So in user experience workshops, what we do is this is basically, it could be a group of people from various walks of life who are putting their views or their expectations from a product or a service or a business that they want to engage with, or an idea. And what we do is we sort we do a sort of this wherein we align similar ideas into one block and then we vote on this. So the next step is basically so this is what we have supporting community and personal development, make a difference with career professionals, execution of a plan, learn to network, personal development, outreach and networking. So I see some duplicates. So for example, personal development is repeated here, supporting community is one, personal development has come up again here. Outreach and networking and learn to network again is the same thing. So let me just move this here. I'm just gonna club it together so that we have lesser, we just have the groups in place. Career development is one. This can again be clubbed with making a difference with career professionals. Is it the same thing? Would you agree? Okay. So the next, so I'll just delete the ones we don't have now. So we are left with these key asks from the mentoring club. So so the next thing to do is to take a dot from here, use this arrow, just click on the arrow. When you click on it once, it becomes it's an arrow. If you click on it twice, it becomes, don't use the hand, use the arrow. And click on one of the dots and just move it on top of the, or under the one that you want to vote for. You can vote for multiple of these cards one time each. So I can give a vote here, here, and here, or I can just keep one vote here and stop at that. And the idea is to figure out where there is consensus and what do you think the mentoring club needs to focus more on. That becomes the output for the mentoring club in this whole thing. So different people may have different views. So the idea for the people, so in this case, anybody who's designing how the experience of the mentoring club should be for everyone will get a sense of, oh, this is what the market needs and what are the most prioritized and how do we pick the most. So right now when I'm looking at it, making a difference with career professionals and learning something new. So when I'm looking at it from a design perspective or an experience design perspective, I will say, how can the mentoring club create that experience of helping people learn something new the most effectively? That becomes the takeaway of this exercise. That becomes a priority. My priority is going to be that. If I do that, I will have more engagement with my users. At a very high level, this is the first level of the whole exercise, right? We're only doing this much, but it gives you a very clear idea that for the mentoring club to have more traction with users, it needs to make a difference with career professionals. That is one. That is the top priority. It's the highest number of votes in this audience that we have today, right? And the second thing is it should contribute to learning. So if you can align activities or the experience with the mentoring club to support these two things, you have already aligned with your audience's needs to a certain extent. Of course, you have to double click on this further and understand more in terms of, there is the next step is to again look at, okay, learn something new. What are the things that they want to learn? Then how does that split in? But then that rolls back into the previous process I was talking about, right? Wherein you have to further iterate and go deeper into your audience's needs to get alignment on this one. So yeah, just a quick, so I hope this was helpful in terms of understanding. So if you can apply the same concept to your initial activity of creating an immediate goal, mapping it with a collaborator, but the collaborator is the one who's going to help you build this with his or her views. If you have multiple people in this, you will have more of these options coming up and more clarity through a vote and building towards an end experience for yourself, no matter what it is that you go for. Right. And that brings me to the end of this short session on user experience and how it can help you in your personal goals. Any questions at this time? Actually, any questions throughout the session, I was more than happy to answer. But yeah, any questions about anything at all, I'm more than happy to answer.
To me, I could relate this to any kind of problem-solving activity.
Yes.
That runs through our head, right? So
yeah. So the biggest,
the iteration, okay.
Yeah. So the biggest challenge always is to understand what the scenario is. Empathizing with the audience is what we call it. So in this case, or empathizing with the user. When you're looking at it from a self point, you have to understand where you are and then what your needs are. You start from there, right? because it is your needs you're trying to fulfill on step one. And then you have to work it backwards, wherein you look at, okay, I have a need, I have to get to the next step, but who do I talk to? And when I talk to that whoever it is, or when I'm interfacing with my audience, I have to ensure that my need is met. But for that, what does the audience really need? So it's a two-way street there a bit. It can get a little confusing, but yeah, if you understand what the needs are, you can align with your actions to it, and you can prioritize those things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I'm relating it to a simple personal goal that I have, like what you said, right? We have to trigger something. What is it, like a small thing that you want to address for you personally, right? So in my case, and I'm thinking of that, it's like, it seems like a small thing, but then it makes sense that I go through this process because it's I just have to treat it as a problem, right?
Yeah.
And I'm the user.
Realizing that it is a problem is the biggest, that it is a need is the biggest challenge in the whole thing. A lot of people miss out on that, because see, that's where when I advise a lot of startup founders, the biggest problem is they always look at technology. Everybody is a technologist today, right? They can create fantastic technical work. They can do, they can write the greatest of codes and create some crazy features, but they never, a lot of companies, where they go wrong in is they roll out a product with a feature set which they think is a killer differentiator, and they completely miss out on whether the user needs it or not. So that's why you see a lot of companies, they may have fantastic products from a technical standpoint, but they don't go anywhere because the user does not have a need for it. The user just does not relate to it. You may have, see, it's like saying, you know what, this is a phone, it can do so many things, it can, connect 5 calls at a time, but I don't have a need for 5 calls. I'm just going to use my phone for my text and I'm sorted. So that feature is of no use to me. Things like that. So you need to always align with your audience and look at where your immediate next step is. You go one step at a time. That's the only way to go about this thing.
So you mentioned about there is a process to everything, right?
Yeah.
And you frequently mention collaborating.
Yeah.
So is there any recommendation that we can get for all of you to choosing the right collaborators, or how do you identify the right collaborators? And is there a particular number of participants that we have to at least have a minimum? And then the last question, is it absolutely necessary to have collaborators?
I'll start from the last one. It's a good question. And I'll start from the last question. It is absolutely necessary to have a collaborator because all of us need feedback. And feedback is what really drives you to think differently. It's like someone holds a mirror to you and says something, and that someone should be able to give you critical, candid feedback. And you should be, when you're looking at doing something to improve or achieve a certain goal, you need to be able to look at slicing and dicing it from a critical perspective. That's the only way you can move ahead in a step. So this whole process that we talk about of getting feedback, the testing, prototype and test something. So when I'm saying, even if you're applying for a job, you create a resume, you need to test it with a small group of people. You will send it to your mentor, you'll send it to your friend and say, hey, how do you think? Does it look okay? Right? That's how you typically do things. Or you may apply for you may have a list of 10 companies on your priority list, but you'll send it to the lowest priority one just to see how that conversation goes and what feedback you get. But you need to be looking at how, what is the feedback on everything that you do. That's the only way you can improve on what you've done previously. Yeah, the ideal set of collaborators, that's the one I missed out on saying. I would say you need to look at, it could be one person, it could be 5 people. But ideally, it depends on the goal. If you're creating a product, as a business, and you're doing some stuff and you're rolling out that, and that's your personal goal, you may need a little bit more. Depends on how big of a challenge you've taken on. If it's something that is very specific, like let's say you're attempting to let's say you want to quit smoking, as an example. That's your goal. You may just need your partner to just keep you on check. Make sure that you don't even go whenever you feel like stepping out for a smoke, that person pulls you back in or says something or distracts you, does something. So you have to do that, right? Something like that. So someone who's going to help you achieve the goal, that someone should be able to understand what your end intent is with that or what your need is there. So yeah, I think you have to take a judgment call on that one.
So it's like having an accountability partner.
Yeah.
And some of the mentors, I've heard of that. Some of the between mentors and mentees, I've heard of mentees really appreciating that their mentors have become their accountability partners in some of the goals that they've put out for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like when you go for a run, you have somebody to pace you. When you're training for a marathon, you have someone who paces with you so that you keep running and you hit those milestones. That's the whole concept.
Sanjeev, I have a question. If you're doing a product, for example, right, and you conduct a session like this, a workshop, especially for the consumer market, so you do it with a number of people providing feedback and input to you. How do you get to a comfort level that you can generalize to the market, right? That is, with these answers, I can get going. That's an extrapolation, isn't it?
It is an extrapolation. It is a process, as I said, right? You have to iterate continuously. So what you do is you identify your initial audience. And there's a process called, you do, when you do a prototype, you do something we call an A/B test. So you have a prototype A, you have a prototype B. It may be variations, maybe subtle variations of the same product or a service, and you push it out to two different segments, or maybe the same segment too. And you get feedback in terms of how they use it. So you have multiple ways you do feedback also. You do user surveys, you do user interviews, you do a lot of stuff. You even just sit and watch how users engage with your product and get sense of and they speak out while they're using it. It's like I use a website or a product and I'm talking to myself when I'm doing it. I'm talking about my experience, and someone is just recording that session and then making notes and understanding what I'm thinking of. So that whole empathy map is what comes into the whole into the process there at that time. So when it comes to the user experience journey, we look at how is the user engaging and what does the user feel and say at every point in that experience, and then you can iterate on that. So it's cyclical, it's continuous. Even any big company today, that's the reason we have versions of software, versions of phones, and we look forward to the next release of an Apple iPhone or a Tesla and all that stuff, right? So everyone's continuously improving. And that's because we are adapting and evolving, and that comes back to the first step that we did today, right? In terms of change is the only constant we know, and we as human beings are the best adapted to make that change or move with the change. And everything that we do has to obviously align. From a business perspective, it has to align the same way. One biggest, the key underlying statement at the end of it all is that of clarity. Everybody's on their own journey and everybody's doing so much of stuff. Each one's goal is different. You may be in the same field. You may have similar skills to someone next to you, but their journey is different. Your journey is different. The key to making sure that you achieve your personal goals using all these processes is to keep the focus on yourself, because you are the product and you have to play to your strengths and not focus on others. So that's a very important part of the whole thing. I think clarity and keeping calm, because we're very tempted to see what's, especially in Silicon Valley. It happens with me too. I see so many people talk about the great successes they've had, the fantastic exits they have, and they're like, half my age. Not that I want to bring my age into it, but yeah, they're half my age and they're doing very well. But yeah, each one's journey is their own, and you have your journey and your strengths, and your focus has to always remain on your immediate goal and stick with that. And if you keep at it, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and you'll get there. Thank you, and I'm happy to. I work with a few startups here, and I mentor them on their product market fit and service, and even in general, I love picking on just looking at how products are being built and what people are thinking about in terms of experiences. So even if it is just to get some feedback, I'm more than happy to connect on on email, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever, to reach out.
Yeah, and if any of our young folks in this meeting today are looking at user experience as a focus area that they would like to be in, then there you go. Sanjeev is a mentor in the mentoring club, and we'll be happy to connect the two of you together.
Thank you, Liesel.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to just do some quick announcements, and then we will go into the networking. And in the networking session, we will give you some guidelines so that you could exchange more meaningful information among each other in our breakout rooms. So let me go ahead and share my screen. The next session in October will be on October 22, and it is going to be by another one of our mentors, Mary. Mary is actually based out of Texas, and she is a certified coach. She was in HR for a couple of decades. And so this is a topic that actually one of our mentees brought up in one of the sessions because she's encountered that some of her friends are saying, I hate my job and I don't know, what to do. I can't quit, or should I quit? So given that feedback, I requested Mary to do this session next month. So if you are interested in the topic, or if you know of other people who might benefit from the wisdom of years of being in HR and being a coach, then by all means, please come to our session on October 22. And then the next event that we're actually running right now is our fundraiser. We call it the Give Back, Lead Forward, a virtual run, walk, and bike fundraiser. So we're trying to fundraise in order to make sure that we have a sustainable organization and we can hire people to help us with our events and our programs for our mentors and mentees. And there are actually 5 ways for you to help us. The first one is to register as a participant. The second is to donate. If you cannot participate for whatever reason, then please feel free to, please consider donating. The third one is actually you can create your own fundraiser in the portal that we're using Run Sign Up. And then fourth is invite family and friends as well. And lastly, promote our event on social media. So if you go to our social media pages on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and also YouTube, all of our Mentoring Matters sessions are in YouTube. If you're interested to explore the topics that we have covered in the past, please go ahead and access that. But for the fundraiser, these are the various ways that you could support us. So please if you have any questions at all, just send me an email and I will give you the links that you need in order to access the fundraiser. And then part of our commitment as well to leadership development is make sure that we're healthy. So we have partnered with one of our mentors who is a yogi, Deepali, and her former life, well, actually she's still doing consulting work in tech, but she's into AI, data science, but at the same time, she's a certified yogi. And she has her sessions Wednesday mornings and Saturday mornings. So instead of creating a different yoga session for just the mentoring club, we're integrating it into her regular sessions. So if you're available those mornings, please do join us too. And that's all I have for the announcements. Am I missing anything? Anybody from our team? And so for the virtual networking, you're welcome to turn on your video. We will do breakout rooms. And these are some of the topics that we'd like for you to consider when you get into that room. Well, of course, introduce yourself. If you don't know each other in the room yet, and then a little bit of background about yourself. So why did you attend this session? What did you wish to receive from or to offer to others in this session? We all have something that we can offer. The topic about, based on what we have covered so far in relation to the topic of using user experience as a way for us to get to our goals, what, in your reflection, what would be your first key step for you after today's session? Whatever it is that you've learned during our discussions, during Sanjeev's presentation, feel free to share that with the group as well. Okay, Everett, go ahead.
Chuck and I had a really good conversation, and I think one thing that I really took away from it was how important it is to never approach a problem with a single view or a single lens. Make sure that you're really trying to come from multiple angles, because that's the only way you can get a real reading on the best way to solve a given problem, is if you think about all the different ways you can approach it. So that's one thing I really appreciated and took away from our conversation.
It's wonderful. And anybody else from either one of the breakout rooms that had 3 people?
So I'll speak.
Okay, go for it, Uday.
So Mark and I were in the same, or in the 2 people breakout room, and it was good. We talked about or shared about each other, and one thing that Mark said that was interesting to me is the importance of presenting with a story is quite important. Even if you have a good solution that has a solid rationale framework and a good solution, however, if it's not presented well, it cannot, from a user perspective, it might not be well received. So that was one important thing to keep in mind for me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Nice. And so I guess I will put Karina on the spot. Our young leaders are the ones that are speaking, right? So there you go. This is why we have this organization. That's for you. Karina, would you like to share something?
Okay, I'm here. I mean, we just really chatted. This is my first time being in one of these, so I don't know. I guess I'm just observing, so I don't know if I have much to say, but I learned a lot. It was a lot that I didn't know about previously, and it's kind of nice to take a break from whatever I'm doing during the pandemic, which is nothing, and learn something new and talk to new people.
Yes. So I think that was one of what we had in your board, Sanjeev, right? Learn something new. It's always refreshing to know that there's something that you don't know. Okay, so anybody from our mentor group?
Nothing will come to fruition if there is no plan. So we start with a plan. So the key is to start defining, forming a detailed plan, or just exploding the high level. That's the key. But I had to add, that's the key. But to open the door, we need to set a schedule and a timeline in order to force the plan to be rolling out. So we need to have also to set a goal with timelines and schedules and milestones. Now, our discussion also went to, we have this idea, we have this plan now to research more, have data gathering, do survey. One would like to have a startup, but having a startup is not just implementing it. The next step that we got from Sanjeev is to find the need, find the needs during, especially that's applicable during this time, this particular point in time. So from the point of view of the target audience, I was in touch with the users.
Go ahead, Chuck.
Okay, thank you, Liesel. A study I read written by one of the named VCs. Looked at 10 companies. Every single one of them had to pivot from the initial plan once they went through what Donna was suggesting about validation. And some of them are very big names. I noticed Sanjeev, who's very experienced, shaking his head yes. By the way, in these meetings like this, I'm also a member of Toastmasters. If you exaggerate your facial expressions, wave your hands a little bit, it makes other people feel your human nature, and it just adds life to everything. So plan, do, check, and adjust. Comes from a guy who Sanjeev reminds me of a lot, Venkat Harada, who's been involved in a lot of Valley startups. Maybe you know Venkat. Really wonderful guy, has a great family. His wife loves horses. Thank you for letting me share.
And thank you for that. Anybody else? Because after this, we just wrap up, right? So pretty much the takeaways are all the things that you've already been saying, right? And also I'll give Sanjeev the last word because really what I have left is just to let you know that we will send you a survey.
A lawyer will sit down with you for an hour and a half or so to see if he can do any good for you, because he doesn't want to take a case he can't win. The same thing with trying to fix small business problems. We can't charge you up front for some big analysis. So what I do is we give a no charge, and by the way, the accelerator I'm also affiliated with does exactly the same thing. They won't take your money to accelerate you if they don't feel you at least have validated that it's a market for the product. Yeah, Sanjeev's shaking his head yes. So if people email me the executive summary, depending on how busy I am, I try to get back to them within a few days with pointing out what I feel it will help them get to the next step. What's missing?
Thanks for that offer.
Just a free service. Yeah.
Yep. I appreciate that very much.
Well, Liesel, we've got to all pull together because there's so much good technology it isn't making it to the benefit of our friends and family because these people don't pivot. They stay stubbornly running into the wall till they run out of money. I had a great time mentoring a brilliant student who's still with us, Everett. He's gonna, you watch, there's an Elon Musk hiding inside there. Look at that, look at that. Yeah, he's a winner. He's a winner.
Anyways.
You have a fan there now, Everett, right?
Well, because he's so capable. He's going to do good. I'm 73. He's going to have to serve a lot more time than I did because he's going to live longer. Before we go to that reward that nobody can agree who's running it and whatever, but we all believe basically the same thing. We just don't use the right labels. You brought all these wonderful people together, so God bless you.
That, and they make me smile. So with that, Sanjeev, I'll let you have the last words and we will wrap up.
Thank you, Liesel. It has been a privilege to be able to speak, and I hope there's in the short amount of time I've had, there's a little bit of value that I've been able to contribute. I'm more than happy to talk about things at length. I love brainstorming around user experience ideas, product ideas, service ideas, any kind of problems pretty much. And because it's always interesting to see how people perceive new things or even existing things and see how we can change it. And I'm all for that. So I hope everybody has something to take away from this. And I think it is very important that we all plan our goals, especially we have a lot of time to think about stuff now. And yeah, one step at a time is what makes it. And keep in mind that you are the product, and always be aware of your audience. I think that's a key thing. Have a good evening, everybody, and stay safe.
Yep, that's very enlightening. So thank you very much, everyone. Let's enjoy the journey together.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye.
Thank you. Till next month.